Greetings, brothers and sisters. There's been a bombshell reveal from Israel's, whatever it is, the intelligence community stuff, which I'll get into in a moment, and how all of it affects the official narrative. And I want to revisit Elon Musk and Bob Iger thing because some hilarious stuff has happened, which I just did. Just as I had finished rendering the video, it came out. I was going to add it to my last video, but I thought I'd do a follow up. And there's some more funny stuff. But I got a new mic, and it works great. It's so much better than my other mic. It records louder. It usually records very softly, so I have to balance out the recording when I'm using the ScreenFlow app. I have to turn the volume down on videos, and oftentimes I can't get exactly right, so I have to edit it in Photoshop, Premiere Pro. And so this new mic is just a blessing. I'm really psyched about it. When I added the first mic that was cordless, that made my life so much easier because the cord was always causing interference and things. But that was short-lived because of the issues I've been having lately. Of course, when I switched over from Microsoft, that was a blessing. Things that have made my job easier substantially. And also, this mic has a display to tell me how much battery is left. The mic I was using was a Samson mic. This one says Voxcon, something like that. But this one has I can look at it, see how much battery's left, which is great because when the battery ran out and I was just talking, to myself basically with the mic not working, or this one has more lights to show if the signal is strong. It's better in every level. So I'm psyched about it, right? In terms of it's going to save me a lot of time and aggravation. And then two more things to get to here. The first one is I was shopping at Whole Foods. I went to the chiropractor. My back was bothering me. And afterwards, I went to Whole Foods. And choosing a line is always a thing, right? My wife and I went there last week. We usually don't go shopping, but we decided to get pizza there. We usually have pizza on Saturday night. My son usually gets the pizza. But we went there, and this guy, nice guy, he was tall, taller than me. I'm like 6'1", 6'2", and skinny, and, Whole Foods worker. And he was so slow, right? And, he reminded me of the sloth. My wife and I were talking about it in the, just talk slow and acted slow. And, he'd ring something up. If you've ever seen the movie, it's a cartoon movie, a Disney one, and one of the rare good ones. My kids and I saw it when we were in India. It was featured a little rabbit, and I don't tell me, don't care, or don't need to know. Jason Bateman played a fox, and they go to motor vehicle department, and there's these sloths there. There's a sloth, they have sloths, the animal sloth, which I've talked about in the past. These sloths are causing problems all over the place. But it's a great scene if you haven't seen it. Just the scene itself is like the best part of the movie. And so I said, well, that guy was Sloth Boy or whatever. So we went back this time, and I started to choose a line, and I looked up, and there was an empty line, but I saw it was Sloth Boy. And he's like, hey, did you guys just in here? It was like last Saturday. First of all, I was going into the line. And because there was nothing on the conveyor belt. And then I looked up, I'm like, oh my God, Sloth Boy. Oh my God, he made eye contact. So I'm now committed. I can't just pull out and go to the next line that has somebody there ringing up. And so he says this thing, you guys in here like today earlier. We're like, no, last week, because we got exactly the same thing. We got these pizzas and stuff. My wife and I had a couple-minute conversation about him after we left. I'm like, he barely remembers us, and I have like a whole sloth universe. So then last week, then later on last week, I went, and when I go to the grocery store, I'm not really in a hurry, but getting to the, getting out of there quicker, picking the right line is important to me for whatever reason. So I get in line, and there's a, kind of a loud woman. I can hear her talking already. And who's a customer, and then the the person at the register is wearing some sort of a headwear, like some kind of religious scarfy kind of thing over her hair, that kind of thing. And the two women she's waited on this woman before, and they had a familiar conversation that lasted like 5 minutes, and the woman had like four things, right? And the conversation went like this: "Where are you from, Bosnia?" And then she started talking about how her son was a lawyer. The Bosnian woman who works at Whole Foods' son is a lawyer, and the woman says, "Oh, her husband's a lawyer, and he just got a new job, and they've moved to the area." And it turns out they live in apartment complexes. There's all these apartment complexes going up in this city, and I've seen these in other places as we've traveled. You see these apartment complexes, maybe you guys have seen them, where they look very familiar, like there's other ones going up just like it. And a lot of them they're either close to a shopping center. They're always close to these stores, grocery stores and other things, 15-minute city kind of things. But they also have on the bottom places for stores to go in. And they're building them everywhere, right? And these women are talking about living in them. And then they both talk about how they can't afford to buy a house even though there's lawyers involved, right? The two lawyers can't afford to buy a house because of the interest rates, and so they're choosing to live in apartments. And that tells you all you need to know about this economy and everything else. The other thing I wanted to say is I saw this meme here, and then I had to find the article. I skipped by the meme, but then I thought about it afterwards. How come George Clooney's gray hair isn't an issue, but mine is? Andie MacDowell had to defend her graying hair after being chastised for preferring to keep her natural appearance. And I'm commenting about this because I'm always calling out victim consciousness now. And the reason is that the beauty industry is a multi-billion, maybe even trillion-dollar business globally. Fashion and beauty is in, a global industry that's probably over $1 trillion. And it's 90 or 80% women. White heterosexual men, cisgender men are not a part of the fashion industry, right? They didn't make the fashion industry. They didn't create the beauty standards. They didn't do any of these things, right? I mean, to some extent they own some of the companies or CEOs of the companies, but the creative people that make the clothing and create these things in the industry are for the most part women and gay men. There's always convenient to blame how there's a double standard, but women have created this industry. Women have made this industry. Women are into beauty and fashion and these things in ways that men aren't. And women are competitive with each other. Usually when a woman dresses up, it's for other women. It's not to attract men. It's not to impress their husbands or whatever. It's because other women are going to judge them or they want to show up another woman. And I talked about that time, recently where Jeff Bezos is his Babylonian hoe and Kim Kardashian both wanted the same $200,000 dress. So the designer decided to make one for each of them. $200,000. Like this is something that, some men are becoming more into fashion and there's now nail polish and makeup lines for men. They're pushing this because they want to expand the industry. But for the most part, it's about women, and women care about it more than men. And this is a woman who made her living as a model. She was, she had an annoying voice, and she wasn't a good actress, but she, was a model. And so that's why, right? It's because women judge other women and are competing with other women in terms of their personal appearance. And, that's not men's fault, right? It's not like some double standard. It's something that women have inflicted on themselves so much so that they're getting these butt implants and this, all these things, enhancement to their bodies and all this stuff that's completely unnecessary because, in terms of appealing to men, you don't need to do it, right? Okay, so that's the intro. Okay, so let's start here. Israeli military analysts flagged Hamas plans to start war before terror attack. 3 months before October 7th attack, a female analyst sent a warning with the subject line, "Death in the kibbutz," at any cost, or Superior dismissed it as an imaginary scenario. A female figured it out, and a man dismissed it. But it was actually a year before it actually happened. Actually, um, this is from Al Jazeera here.
For staying with us. This is not the first time that we've heard that Israeli intelligence might have been warned about Hamas planning to carry out such an attack. Soon after October 7th, there were reports that Egyptian officials had warned Israel that Hamas was planning something. This is the most detailed report of the kind. What do you make of it?
Well, it is a very detailed account. It's a strategic plan, and if we compare it to what happened on the 7th
Who's this girl?
of October, several similarities are.
So this is devastating to Israel's storyline here. Because if they're saying that Egypt figured this out, Israel has one of the most extensive network of intelligence in the world. And they have this region around them. I mean, this is on their border, a small little area that they can't control that's only 20 miles wide, right? It's a small area. It's approximately the size of Delaware. And so here is the Gaza Strip. Well, this is New Jersey, right? Israel is compared to New Jersey, and the Gaza Strip is the size of the state of Delaware. And so, tiny little area. And they have this extensive military and intelligence community centered around this area. And they got a warning from Egypt, who really doesn't even care. Egypt warned them that something was about to go down, because Egypt didn't want this to happen, what's happening to them now. And so, doesn't add up, right?
Talk about what your team learned about this blueprint and the length of time that Israel had to review these plans and why it wasn't listened to.
So somewhere around along 2022, Israeli intelligence was able to get the plan for the Hamas attack. It was codenamed by Israeli intelligence the Wall of Jericho, the Jericho Wall.
Wall of Jericho.
And it details in many, many, many different details how the attack is going to take place, exactly as it took place more than a year after.
So listen, this happens with pretty much every one of these events, that the intelligence community has these events long before they happen, which makes it sound, I believe that Hamas is an Israeli asset, just like it was proven that ISIS was an American asset, which I've demonstrated before. And, Israel has compared Hamas to ISIS. And we see this with all these events where the intelligence community actually has the plans to the event. Sometimes you see the events actually play out in movies and TV shows, right? Ahead of time. And yet they're caught completely off guard, unprepared. A couple middle management guys are to blame, or one guy here is going to be to blame, somebody who, didn't pass it through. They don't blame the upper echelon guys because they don't want to be, they find a way to make a fall guy for this thing. They don't want to blame their system and their intelligence apparatus. They're going to blame it on human error. It's going to fall on the shoulders of one guy who's really to blame for this whole thing. And now the Palestinian people, 15 to 20,000 of them, many of them kids, are dead now because of it, right? Because of one guy's failure. That's their official story.
This could be an intelligence victory for Israel. But Israeli analysts, some of the seniors of Israeli intelligence, saw the plan as more of, they call it a compass for the building of the forces, where Hamas wants to be, but not where Hamas is. So while having that plan, they saw this as something that Hamas is far from being capable of doing. they believe that Hamas has doesn't have the ability.
Again, Palestinians is losing this thing. So why would they do this? Who benefits from what happened? Oh, who benefits from the victim consciousness created by this event in October 7th to be exact, right? Well, it's Israel because they're able to move their agenda forward and take control of the Gaza Strip and eventually the West Bank and remove Palestine from there, make Palestine Israel. That's their goal. We know that's their goal. His deeply controversial, and he is deeply controversial, and he runs the U.S. Gaza agenda. It's a very old school colonialist mentality. How a deeply controversial White House advisor is running the agenda on Gaza, Brett McGurk, has sought to put a Saudi-Israeli relationship at the forefront of the U.S. Middle East policy, downplaying Palestinian concerns about human rights. 4 men in the Washington shape America's policy in the Middle East. 3 are obvious: Joe Biden, Anthony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, and the 4th is well less known, despite his huge sway over the other 3, and despite his determination to keep championing policies that many see as fueling bloodshed in Gaza and beyond. His name is Brett McGurk. Neocons and liberal hawks in Biden's team, right? So he had all these neocons who want this. And this is, the people that make up his intelligence team. It's like he had to make a deal with the neocons to get rid of Trump. And so this guy, Brett McGurk, is amongst them. The infamous Brett H. McGurk, and this is written before this happened. This was the article's from a while back. This article's all the way back from 2021. The infamous Brett H. McGurk, who in his tenure as special presidential envoy for the coalition to counter the Islamic State, this is ISIS, insisted on support of the PKK related militias in Syria, is also considered a neocon and started his career with George W. Bush administration. He will be in the Middle East czar in Biden's National Security Council. That may be a signal of the return of the U.S. to the greater Middle East plan to divide and conquer the Middle East, with redrawing borders and exploiting the Kurdish factor to breed chaos in the region. So this is that guy, right? And even the liberal Huffington Post is reporting against him.
So do you know this guy, Rabbi Shmuley?
Sure do.
So
one of my viewers sent me this, and then YouTube recommended it. This is Jimmy Dore, and this guy, Rabbi Shmuley.
he's the guy that
Wrote Oprah's rabbi.
that's Oprah's rabbi.
I'm sure my joke about Rabbi Shmuley.
No.
He used to hang out with Michael Jackson and Oprah. It sounds like an old joke. A rabbi, Oprah, and Michael Jackson are hanging out.
So I guess he did a.
That's Kerp. From Kyle Doonigan has a new thing out. Oh, it's kind of funny. Someone else sent me that. Kyle Doonigan. And Kerp is in it. That guy, Kurt Metzger. So, anyway, this thing.
Debate with this guy named
Muhammad Hajib.
yeah, and he kept bringing up the Muhammad Hajib kept bringing up that his daughter sells sex toys for a living.
Were they arguing about Israel?
Yeah,
So, he wrote this in his Rabbi Shmuley. So, this is his Twitter. And he's still hanging out with RFK Jr. We'll come back to that. Look at RFK Jr. looking like he's got a stick up his ass, right? Thank you so much, my dear friend Robert Kennedy Jr., for strong support of Israel and the demand that the hostages all be freed and released immediately. And so he's got that twice here. And then here he is here in Miami. Here he is talking about Kissinger dying. Kissinger, who's this is Kissinger's wife, Henry Kissinger and his wife, kind of much taller than Henry. So if you haven't seen that. So here is his post. In recognition of my friend and brother debating partner, Mohammed Jahab, Jobo official job, I don't know, did promote my daughter Kana's kosher sex toy company in our Piers Morgan debate. We are offering, they have kosher sex toys. They make kosher dildos, right? Like, how do you make it kosher? Like, is it blessed by somebody? It must be blessed by a rabbi. He must bless dildos, this guy. This guy is a dildo blesser. And, like, that's all you need to know. We are offering special code of kosher sex for lubricants, vibrators, and all other sexual products that he repeatedly and bizarrely referenced in the debate. Simply use discount code MOHAJIB at kosher sex. So he has I'm not going to click on that because obvious reasons. Use the discount code now, buying all your intimacy your intimacy needs. Thanks, Mohammed, for repeating plugging both the company and the products, and we hope that they have been helpful and useful to you. We're serious, and the promotion code is real.
Hi everyone, I'm being stopped all over the streets of London. Here I am with my daughter Hannah in front of Tower Bridge, which I consider the most beautiful bridge in the world. Hannah doesn't.
No, not exactly.
Hannah sells sex toys.
We are here to announce we're so grateful to our brother Mohammed Hijab for continually... Thanks, Mohammed.
Yeah, they're mocking the guy. They're trying to get in and sell some more of their... Well, he's blessing dildos, this guy. I mean, he's very busy blessing dildos.
Mohammed, for continually promoting Hannah's kosher sex company based on the book that I wrote, and especially the lubricants that he spoke about.
Oh, that's right, the super slippery ones.
Super slippery ones.
Couldn't handle the facts, so had to go after my dad's kids.
So,
kaboom! He's such a meaner.
In honor and in recognition and in gratitude for Mohammed continually giving your company international promotion. What are we doing, Hannah?
We're having a discount. A Mohammed Hijab discount.
There's a new Mohammed Hijab discount code. You go to kosher.sex, right?
Kosher.sex. At the checkout, you can put in Mo Hijab.
It's all blessed. This guy's blessing lubricants and dildos. He's a dildo blesser. I mean, that's what it is, right? When something's kosher. I had friends. I went to my friend's bar mitzvah as a kid. I have Jewish friends that I grew up with. And I've eaten some of the kosher food. I think it was explained to me. My dad had Jewish friends, and my mom was out of town, and we went to my dad's friend's house for Passover. And I've had it explained to me, right? I'll look it up in a second, but I'm pretty sure that it involves a rabbi. You have to get a rabbi to bless something to make it kosher. And here's a rabbi, and his daughter has a sex company, so he has to bless these dildos, right? He's a dildo blesser.
Hijab, M-O-H-I-J-A-B, okay?
So your sex can be both holy and hot.
Right.
It's holy because it's been blessed by this guy. This guy, when he blesses something like a dildo, it makes the dildo holy.
Or it could be, listen, it's even better the way Muhammad said it. It could be unholy schmoly. The unholy schmoly sex is even better than the holy schmoly.
Mohammed Hijab.
So Muhammad, thank you for promoting.
Did she just say hand job?
Hannah's, we really appreciate it. I was there to debate Israel, but you took the opportunity to really give Hannah's company
Appreciate you.
Right. All made in Israel products, correct?
Yeah, thank God.
So Muhammad's going to help.
Our first kosher sex product made in Israel.
Right.
And some of the proceeds are going to go to soldiers, God willing. So, yeah, that's launching today.
And you could see that Muhammad wore in the debate the white and blue of the Israeli flag. So he was out to promote Israeli companies and promote Israel and promote kosher sex especially because he kept on speaking about it. So again, you go to kosher. This is for real, right? You go to kosher.
It's for real. It's for real. This is a real company. He's really into this thing. He's doing it.
Sex. And if you're buying a lubricant, or he kept on speaking about vibrators, he kept on speaking about all these sexual products which we use for intimacy.
He's a vibrator blesser too. He blesses all these things.
Between husbands and wives in order to make marriages more passionate. And if you want to buy any of these products that he kept on referencing in the debate about Israel, what do you do as you check out, Hannah?
At the checkout you put in the code. There's a promo code that you can input.
It's Mohammed Hijab, Mo Hijab, and thank you, Mohammed Hijab discount code, and you get 10% off, which is it's the deal of the century. Thank you, Mohammed.
It's the deal of the century. You can get these blessed sex products. It's the deal of the century. How much was it? Was it 10% off?
Hijab, and thank you, Mohammed Muhammad Hijab discount code, and you get 10% off, which is
Yeah.
10%. All you get is 10% for the deal of the century. Contrary to a common myth, a rabbi does not bless a food to render it kosher. To produce kosher certified products, all the component ingredients must be kosher certified, including any processing aids that contact the food. So I asked here, so that's for food. Like the ingredients have to be considered kosher ingredients, which, I understood that. But how do you make sex toys kosher? Haaretz, enjoying sex toys the kosher way, the Jewish world. There are kosher sex toys made for Jews, kosher sex toys in Tel Aviv by Rabbi's daughter sells. So what makes the toy kosher? It says right here in the Times of Israel. There she is, selling her sex toys and her lubricant. What makes a sex toy kosher was a question number one after the Times of Israel received an invitation to visit a kosher sex shop and open doors recently in the heart of Tel Aviv. In fact, approaching this shop was initially confusing. The sign on the window said kosher sex in black and purple letters, but at first glance, all that could be seen from the outside was clothing. The clothes helped ease the way in for the customer, said 28-year-old Botich dressed in jeans. Oh, it's a Botich. I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong. And sleeves and a t-shirt. So what makes the toy kosher? It is the purpose of the toys, the Botich explained. The sex aids are meant to help married couples create intimacy in a relationship. Yeah, there's nothing more intimate in your marriage than involving a dildo or a vibrator. There are things that should be used with a partner to create further intimacy. People marry and stay in relationships for a long time. AIDS can help people spice up things between them in a very hard to maintain lust and novelty in the long-term relationship. You need to rediscover intimacy between two people. And to do that, you must learn something new all the time. And these aids can help you do that. And so they're saying they're just calling it kosher. They don't have any, it's not the ingredients that are being used. It's not those things. So the same thing here. Okay, so it's Sunday morning, December 3rd. So I'm in the editing process. I was trying to get this video up on YouTube on Saturday, but, it just didn't happen because of, time constraints. But anyways, I thought about this quite a bit. I talked about it with my wife, this whole weird thing. And to make something kosher is just about ingredients. So there's no blessing from a rabbi. And, it's important in the Jewish tradition to keep the kosher idea pure. Like this guy's calling his daughter's sex products holy, right? But they're not kosher because there's no ingredients in it. It's not food. It's not anything like that. And so to call it kosher sex is demeaning the religion, right? It's really a scummy thing to do to their own religion. This guy's a rabbi. The only thing that makes it kosher is, it's not really kosher, but their claim that it's kosher is that a famous rabbi who's, we're going to get into the RFK Jr. thing, but this is a famous rabbi who goes in on the talk circuit. He's out there in public. He's got a social media following, and he's blessing his daughter's business, calling it kosher, right? He's out there saying it's kosher when it's, it's not within his job description to make something kosher. So he literally is a dildo blesser, because it's only his fame as a famous rabbi and his position as a rabbi that they can make this claim because it's not really kosher. There's no way to make a sex toy or sex lubricants kosher because it's the ingredients. It's a misleading claim, and he's undermining his own religion. You can't make sex toys holy. You can't, change them into something that's divine, right? You can make them silly, like you can make fun of them. They don't have to be like, demonic. You can, but they're sex toys and sex products, and, they're not, this isn't higher vibrational stuff. It isn't something that resonates on a higher vibration. It's not something that has, spiritual energy radiating from it. Everything has God in it, which I've talked about. You can penetrate to the center of any, on a spiritual level, on an etheric level, and you'll find divinity. But, it's sex toys, right? And so this clown, right, is just out there, dissing his own religion, like he's contaminating it. He's bringing it down to this level, and his daughter's involved, which is, not great for her. I mean, she can't find some other way to utilize her father's fame to make a living, right? And I'm not, whatever. I don't care. Like it's no, but it's a degradation. I said before, there's no good guys in this conflict. In the Christian, Israeli, Jewish, Muslim conflict, there's no good guys. There's no heroes. There's no people who are in the right. The Palestinian people are, they don't have any power. They don't have an army. So they are sitting ducks, and they're being bullied and abused by the Israeli people. I saw something on Facebook where there's a sign on the street that says, Israel's murdering Palestinian children again. Have a nice day. It's like one of those, where people put letters out, in front of a store or something, right? And it's clear abuse and it's clear human rights violations. But I believe the Palestinians, the Arabs, would be doing the same thing to the Jewish people if they were in power. If they were the ones with the capability of bullying, if they had the backing of America and they were, in that position, they would be doing the same thing. Like, this is how it works. There is this element within, not just these religions, but within the human system to exploit and abuse and oppress other people. It's something that's done. We all know it, right? We all know this is commonly done. It's it's a part of our existence as human beings. So I don't have a horse in this race. Like, I don't, I don't root for one side or another. I don't, I feel like it's all a part of a system that has to be destroyed. It's bringing a system that we're all dependent on. So, we all have skin in the game in that sense, because when the system goes down, our life is going to change dramatically, and not for the better, at least on a material level, because it isn't going to get, people aren't going to be better behaved after the system collapses, right? It'll degenerate into, gang violence. I've said this before. Governments, as bad as they suck, when you take them down, it always gets worse. It's never gotten better in the modern era when a government is taken down, when there's regime change, when, a government collapses because of revolution or it's been, some outside force takes a government and a system down. Things get worse. They get worse for a long time. We know that. That just is the way it is. Governments suck, but without them, it's, just chaos. And so there's some order in governments, as corrupt as they can be and as bad as they can be. They keep the order in ways that, when thugs rule, like it becomes a thug-based system without any laws and rights and things like this, right? You lose all your rights and privileges, and it's just, whoever has the most guns, whoever has the most power, imposes their will, right? But what's happening here is just a lie. That's why I cover it. Like, I cover it because there's just overwhelming deception here, right, across the board. They're just lying. Israel's lying, and it's, using this victim consciousness game that they always run to, do something that is obviously planned and a desired thing, and to encroach on this country that doesn't really exist anymore, called Palestine, and take what's left of their land. There's bombing today right there. Let me find the headlines, and these are from Liberal. This is MSNBC. Israel-Hamas war live updates. U.S. raises pressure to protect civilians. Israel bombards southern Gaza. And then this one from the Liberal Huffington Post. Israeli offensive shifts to crowded southern Gaza, driving up death toll despite evacuation orders. And so they're bombing again. They're bombing civilians, and there's just no way to get around that. And there's no way to justify this, no matter what's happened historically. We're going to get into these other things with Susan Sarandon and Margulies, whatever her first name is, Julianne Margulies or something. And so, I don't have a stake in the thing because I look at it as just part of the collapse, right? Part of the system having to come down in some way, and the lies are just there. But just them forcing their lies on us through the media and these, it's obviously lies. And this guy is out there debating on Piers Morgan, and he's a dildo blesser. I mean, he's made, something that can't be kosher into being kosher. And he got called on it on Piers Morgan, and they tried to turn it around to a business opportunity, And, let's get into the other dildo that he blessed here. But anyways, speaking of blessing dildos, right? This guy. Woo! Woo! So Robert F. Kennedy has torpedoed his candidacy, like I said. He doesn't even register. Nobody's talking about it anymore. And it sucks because, he sucks worse because he can articulate truther positions and understand with them and agree with them in ways these other candidates never could. Bush and, Trump and Biden and the rest of them. And so he was potentially a true truther candidate because he understood the truther narratives and agreed with many of them. And he was on the right side of some of the biggest hot-button issues, including the bloop and the other things, right? And he had done wonderful things for the environment. But he so groveled to this guy, this kosher blessing dude. Dildo blessing dude, right? They're just calling these things kosher when they're not even really kosher.
Oh, here, let's.
So there they are, him and Rabbi Shmuley. And then, so then this guy, he just rocks it. It went on for, this is an hour and 53 minutes.
Transition to the questions. I want to thank you, and I say this sincerely. The Talmud has a famous expression that says that words that emanate from the heart penetrate the heart. It also rhymes in Hebrew. Farim hayotzim min halev nichasim el halev. Words that emanate from the heart penetrate the heart, because so many people are cynical about politics and about politicians. And when you and I went to the Celebrate Israel parade and you were getting into your car, and given how your father died and your uncle, you have a lot of security, and my heart went out to you that you have to live like that at times. But I just saw your courage marching with us, marching with the Jewish people, and I put my arms on your shoulder and I said, do you believe in God? And you said to me, God is the center of my life. And then you said to me, and you said it with such conviction, and you said to me, Shmuley, I'm going to be a great champion for Israel. You know what, Bobby? You absolutely kept your word. You have restored my...
Kaboom! Woo! Woo! Bobby!
And
bless that dildo.
And any American Jews who have slandered you this week, I'm asking them to do the right thing and to apologize, because this was extraordinary.
So going back to what I was saying earlier, again, I'm in the editing process. When somebody can articulate the truther points, because if you talk to most people, loved ones, people in your, life, whatever, coworkers, people that you've tried to explain these things to, and then people in the mainstream media and politicians and whoever it is, right? Especially politicians. If you ask them about truther narratives, they can't really explain them to you. They can say things in a mocking way. Oh, this is what you guys believe. And they have to rearrange the facts when they're saying it. They have to make you sound stupid and belittle you and all these things. They can't accurately state your position. They can't really state what you believe. They don't have the ability to say, oh, this is what you believe. This is what you're saying you believe. They can't hear you or listen to you. And they have to make you sound ridiculous. They can't, say that you have a valid point or that your belief system, your dogma, the way that you see it, the lens in which you view the world is valid. They have to make you crazy, right? They have to make you some crazy conspiracy theorist. When you're arguing with somebody it's a good idea to every once in a while say, okay, I'm going to state what you're saying to me. You're going to restate what they're saying to you. So they understand that you're hearing them. And then you ask them to restate what your position is. And they usually can't. They usually can't articulate your position because people don't want to validate when they're in conflict the other person's reality and the other person's view of the world. But Kennedy was able to do that with the truth community, even sound like he was one of us. And to some extent he was, and he still is, because we share some beliefs with him. And it's not just words with him. He actually did some good things. He did good things with the environment. He was positive. He had some effect. And he was, going up against big pharma, and he was literally, putting his money where his mouth was. And he was doing things. He was active. He was an activist. And, these were truther things. He had done things positively for the environment and other, things he's done for the medical community. And he was, he brought this censorship up to the House of Representatives, right? The whole censorship hearings that he was, doing a good job of bringing up the fact that they were censoring us on the social media, the government was. And I believe a little bit is better than nothing, right? And it wasn't a little bit. I thought he was having a positive effect as as the legitimate truther candidate that had at least a possibility of winning. And if not that, bringing these narratives and articulating these points in a debate, which would make the show that much more interesting. And so I was happy to see it. I was happy with what he was saying, and he went on this tour, he went on this truther tour, and he interviewed with all these people. But at some point, he said something about how the COVID boops were targeting, or COVID itself was targeting different ethnicities. And he said the people it's not targeting are Asians and Ashkenazi Jews. And that caused outrage. Remember, and that was something that was in the House hearings. And he was labeled as anti-Semitic. And so he wanted to dispel how wrong that was. He went on this guy's show. He did it twice. This is, I think, a second time. And I don't know if I couldn't find the part where this guy's just talking about how great Bobby is and how, he just is, he's laying it on thick with the guy. And Bobby just gave them more than even Trump. And Trump is the number one. Israel is one of Trump's handlers. And Bibi said that Trump was Israel's greatest friend, right? Like he had been, not just American presidents. He's even talked about Joe Biden, but he was talking about Trump being even more so. But Bobby went in even harder and deeper for Israel into their, BS narrative than Trump or Biden or anybody we've ever seen. And it contradicted everything else he was saying about human rights and what he was about. And he slammed the Palestinian people and degraded them in ways that it was just, it was so icky, right? It's just something where, he can't do something like that. No matter what he's done before and what positions he's agreed with us, he just repeated it. I talked about this when it happened, and even more so now, because it happened before this happened. It happened before October 6th or 7th or whatever it is, right? He was already on board with this thing, and he's been worse ever since. And he's promoting this. This is his video on his channel. He put this video out. He's really promoting it. And he's doubled down and tripled down, and he keeps on getting worse. It's embarrassing to a guy who's, claims that his daughter is selling holy dildos. This guy, right? This is how bad it is. This is, to me, stunning. I'm covering a lot of things here because, Israel's admission that they had evidence over a year before the thing happened with the Hamas holes, and they did nothing. And this is a pattern of behavior that we've seen with all these false flaggy type things where an incident happens. So a government, a powerful force has now justification for doing something that they always wanted to do. This is what the neocons did with the big event in 2001. America was victimized, and then they got to go over and kill 1 million Iraqis and destroy, Gaddafi and do regime change and just wreck whole countries based in, something that appears like all the evidence indicates it was done, to itself. An entity doing something to itself and blaming somebody else so they can, run some thuggery game and glom resources from the entity that allegedly victimized them. It's a scam. It's an old-time scam to do that, right? Like thugs would go up in New York City or someplace to a person and say, hey, you stole my watch, and take the person's watch, right? Hey, man, you just stole my watch, and then, beat the guy up. 3 thugs would be some old, man up or whatever, and take his, his stuff, pretending that he was robbing them, right? It's just one of these gaslighting thug games that's played. It's nothing new, and this is what is happening here, and Kennedy going along with it in a way that we haven't seen is just atrocious, right? But they knew about it, and they didn't do anything about it. So that blows up their whole narrative and all of it, because they're to blame. Their intelligence community failed, and their intelligence community is 100% about Palestine. I mean, it's not 100%, but that's their primary focus. They're right there, and they couldn't figure out this thing was going to happen. Of course they could, right? Because they're running it. Because this operation is something they've wanted to do for years, and they're pushing it even despite, Joe Biden's administration is pushing them to reduce the amount of civilian casualties, and they're just ignoring him and everybody else. And so Kennedy's just a POS, like an absolute POS. And like I said, he's disappeared. Nobody's talking about him anymore, not just in the truth community. He's made himself irrelevant. And why even run to do that? Like, why come out and run and, get people's hopes up and do the truther tour to just crap on yourself over this, thing with this obvious lie. But anyways, he was supposed to he said he was going to run on the truth. All right, let's go back to this other stuff with Susan Sarandon and this other woman. This guy, most Zionists don't believe in God exists, but they do believe that he promised them Palestine. Right? This guy, some Israeli historian. Juliana Margulies apologizes for saying black people have been brainwashed to hate Jews. She said it, and then she this headline yesterday was that she said this, and then the headline changed today. The article changed to her apologizing for it. Let me explain what I'm saying there. So yesterday, 2 days ago, I opened this up on a tab, and I was going to cover it whenever I got a chance. And then overnight, they had changed the headline. So the tab I had open to this article went from her saying something to her apologizing. Like they just updated the article, And so that was, that happens occasionally where they actually change the context of the article that was up the day before, even so much that they changed the headline. But she also said things about the LGBTQ and things. She had to apologize for lots of things here. Susan Sarandon apologizes for anti-Jewish rant at New York City rally after she got dropped by top Hollywood talent agency. It was a terrible mistake.
People that are afraid of being Jewish at this time and are getting a taste of what it feels like to be a Muslim in this country.
I reported on this before, but I don't know exactly what she said. But what she just said there was people who are Jewish now know what it's like to be afraid to be Jewish in America. And they're getting a taste of what it's like to be a Muslim because of all the stuff that happened with the big event 2001 and how Muslim people have lived in a sense of fear and prejudice in America. Now, this is, of course, it's not that bad what she said. You're going to hear me say that in a second. I'm editing now, so we'll go back to what I was saying. But her saying that, and then she apologizes and talks about it this way, is her implying that Jewish people have never been victimized and targeted for their faith, right? Which is their big thing. That's their big claim, right? Because of the Holocaust being the centerpiece and using guilt and victim consciousness for past atrocities to justify bad behavior, right? Justify the same behavior. Because what was done to them is being done to the Palestinians. They're doing to the Palestinians what was done to them in these other countries where they were not in power and they were treated this way. So they're just doing the same thing. I've always talked about this. Behaviors are, behaviors are always the same. You can try to justify the wrong behavior, but you're not against the behavior if you're okay with your group or you doing it to somebody else, but you don't like it when somebody does it to you, which is, one of the biggest problems in the world, that people complain about a behavior being done to them, but they're doing it to somebody else. That people pass on abuse, it trickles down, and they just keep on doing it over generations, right? Things that were done to you, you'd start doing to other people. This is, what I work with when I work with sexual abuse and treatment centers and, physical abuse and just emotional abuse. People get abused and they learn how to be the abuser, and they go from being the victim to the abuser. And there's a victim in every abuser and an abuser in every victim. I've talked about this quite extensively, right? But her saying this is relatively innocent. She says in her apology, which you'll hear in a second, that she wasn't even expecting to speak, and she she didn't articulate things correctly. It's not really that bad of a thing, but she's been, kind of blackballed now, or she's lost her, her talent, her agent and all these things. But it's because you can never claim that. I mean, she claimed that the Palestinian Muslim people know more what it's like to suffer for their faith than Jewish people, and you can never say that. And if you're a public figure or a Hollywood person,
so often subjected to violence. It's important to listen. It's important to have facts. Try to take a breath before you answer. And if it's possible, have a conversation. You don't have to go through the entire history of that region. You can just show the babies that have been dying in incubators, the families.
More incubators. They're all big on incubators. So she said that, which isn't, that horrible. They're calling it a rant, but it certainly wasn't a rant. But now she has posted on Instagram, she's posted this apology, and she's blocked all comments. Recently, I attended a rally alongside a diverse group of activists seeking to highlight the urgent humanitarian crisis in Gaza and call for a ceasefire. I had not planned to speak, was invited to take the stage and say a few words. So she said this thing about getting a taste. And this phrasing was a terrible mistake, as it implies that until recently Jews have been strangers to persecution, when the opposite is true. So that's her apology. So then this is interesting. Let's get back to Elon Musk and Bob Iger. And so here he is, Elon Musk, with the Netanyahu. And it says here, Linda Yaccarino's memo to staff, to ex-staff, Twitter staff, after Elon Musk's interview where he told advisors, go F yourself. Advertisers to go F yourself. And I'll get back into that in a moment. And he said he shared an unmatched and completely unvarnished perspective and vision for the future, Yaccarino told social media site Workforce in the memo titled Proud to be an Ex with You. She encouraged staffers to watch the 90-minute interview at the New York Times Deal Book Summit, and she said, and no matter how hard they try, they will not be distracted by sidelined by critics who don't understand the mission. And so, she works for Elon. So here is what's said. Let's watch this again.
Leaving, we talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
He said, we talked to Bob Iger.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go yourself.
But
go yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
So that was for Bob Iger, right? But then this is Bob Iger. Disney Bob Iger gives into pressure, announces he will quit. So this guy has had to quit. And Disney, ABC, ESPN, Marvel, all these companies, Universal, that are now a part of Disney are cratering. And they're on hard times. And they're going to take more of a beating because they're putting out all this content. So I'm in the editing process, and my microphone, my new microphone, it's not the microphone, obviously, but there was this static problem I've been having. So I'm kind of bummed. Right? I thought I had it solved. So I tried a new microphone already of the microphone I was already using, and then I got a completely different model of a microphone. It's still having this problem. So I think it might be the USB-C port that the thing's plugging into, that there's some like interference. I used to get this with the cord when I had microphones on a cord, and the cord would start to fray. It sounds like that kind of a thing, where it's just not getting, there's some sort of inconsistency, like a break in the cord. So I'll try this new port, and also there's an update to the computer. Hopefully I don't have to get a new computer, but we'll see what happens. But anyways, let's get back to it here. Disney CEO Bob Iger says the Marvels flopped at the box office because of lack of supervision on set. That's not, that's not it, Bob. The studio chief also admits that Disney has made too many sequels. That's not it either, Bob. The Marvels was shot during COVID, Iger said during a panel at New York Times. There wasn't as much supervision on set, so to speak, where we have executives that are really looking over what's being done day after day after day. Again, that's what his theory is. The truth of the matter is, and they've already stated this publicly, that there is a dislike for this character. Even Stephen King came out and said this. He called it misogyny. But what it is people are sick of the feminist agenda being pushed on them in these movies, and the woke agenda. And, it's obvious that's the case, and they're even admitting to it. They don't like the Miss Marvel, they don't like Marvel character, Captain Marvel or Miss Marvel. They don't like these characters. And it isn't misogyny. They're being mansplained how men suck and women are great, and how difficult women have it, and the whole feminist agenda. We've seen this over and over again in all these movies, and they're not getting it. And they've already got another movie coming out that's featuring these feminist characters, and it's not working. I mean, I've stated it over and over again. And so here's another one. Bob Iger blames the Marvel's box office for failure, partially on lack of set supervision. But it isn't like they heard that the movie was bad and people didn't come to it because of that. People didn't want to see the movie in the first place. It got a poor box office. Initially, it's got the worst box office of any Marvel movie. So either they didn't like the trailer, or they're over Marvel stuff, right? You've lost your audience. And the biggest reason is the woke stuff. And, the suckiness of the movies and your failure. The Avengers Endgame, the last two movies, were not that great. I mean, there was a fall off. And then the movies since then, the Thor, the Thor 4, the fourth version of Thor, was horrible. It was like a ridiculously bad movie. And jokes that failed and was embarrassing. And then Ant-Man Quantumania, it's hard to say which was worse, but they were both really bad. And they were introducing this new villain, which I covered, who this guy's been Me Too'd, and he's allegedly assaulted a girlfriend. He's on trial for that. And their whole, all of it's cratering. And the centerpiece was supposed to be Miss Marvel. She was the, or Captain Marvel. She was supposed to be the centerpiece. The Miss Marvel show was ridiculous, and it was mostly for kids. It was unwatchable. And then, all the rest of these things. And so they're rejecting Disney. Disney's failing, right? He's going up against Elon Musk, and his company is laying off people. I mean, ESPN, and, they're doing things to piss people off, and the quality of their content is diminished, and they're cratering, and then they're going up against Elon Musk, who's willing to roll the dice and just say, F it, and let Twitter collapse because of Disney's not wanting to advertise, and then blame Disney when it's already taken hits left and right. I mean, this would be great. If Disney went, Chapter 11 or something, that would be wonderful. That would be a great thing. I mean, it would suck for the economy, but it would be great. But anyways, so Bob Iger had to resign Bob Iger announced his design to resign from Second Time amid controversy around Marvel's box office woes. Walt Disney Bob Iger has announced he will step down in 2026. So in 2 years, it's being covered across the board here. So he's failing, right? Disney's failing. He's failing. He's talked about how the woke agenda that they're pushing is hurting their brand and all the rest of it. And then he's in this thing with Elon Musk. Like he's getting rung up, right? The gospel, how Israel uses AI to select bombing targets in Gaza, which so this is pretty effed up because we've talked about how AI is not reliable because AI will what they call hallucinate, will just make things up. And if you allow AI to guide you, or you don't supervise AI, which America wants to do, and when you're dealing with innocent civilians and kids here, and Israel just doesn't seem to care about the collateral damage because they want to get rid of all the Palestinians anyway, right? So it says the latest Israel-Hamas war has provided an unprecedented opportunity for the IDF to use such tools in a much wider theater of operations, and in particular to deploy AI-targeted creation platform called the gospel. They're calling this thing the gospel. They're calling AI, I mean, this gives a biblical reference, like calling sex toys holy and kosher, right? I mean, they're just degrading their own religion and their beliefs, which has significantly accelerated a lethal production line of targets that officials have compared to a factory. And so think about that for a minute. But anyways, I want to wrap this video up. Like, I want to deal with my mic thing, and it's kind of long. A lot of stuff here. But Bob Iger, like, I mean, talk about the wrong time to pick a fight, right? When you have to step down, I mean, the guy's had to step down. And your company's tanking, and you've already said that it has something to do with the woke policies, which are, all of it. And, this thing with, I mean, just all of the stuff I presented here. A rabbi whose daughter is selling dildos that are supposed to be holy and kosher. I mean, like, what's going on? It's the year of the effort. Anyways, only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.